Hey guys, all right, so today I'm going to be doing podcast number 10 from out in the field. So it's going to be an interesting topic. It's going to be multiple topics actually, but um, what I want you guys to know is that certain segments of this podcast will be directed towards men specifically. I'm going to be talking to the younger generation, some of those that are following me on the podcast, be sending me messages and that I've been interacting with. And so it's going to be broken up into pieces and put on Facebook page instead of the usual YouTube channel. And hopefully we can try and make the segment shorter and also more directed towards the intended audience. So as you guys can see, I am fully stacked today. I've got about 60 pounds of gear. Look at this view behind me. About 60 pounds of gear, and I'm starting this trek on what I call is one of my time trial tests. It's a trail that I use, which is extremely difficult to try and accomplish. And the idea is to see if I can maintain my discipline, physical fitness, and motivation to push through and not try and get a bailout card and completely on my own. Nobody knows where I am. Obviously, I've got a get out of jail free card, which is a GPS and communicator to communicate and get an extraction if there's a problem. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm on my own. I've got to take care of myself and make it through this trail, which has got no cell phone reception and nothing else but my physical ability to get me through this. And I'll be catching up with you guys on the next piece as soon as I get a little bit further into the trail. Let's get going. So for me, one of the most difficult things to do is to try and keep up with the standards that I set up for myself when I was younger. And physical standards, can be set quite high when you're young. So for me, this track is one of the most difficult things that I've ever done. Normally it's a trail that advanced hikers would do in about a day, and I'm going to try and get through it in half a day. So this is a fitness test of doing it as quickly as possible. It's a lot of running. I'm going to be running as fast as I can. You guys are going to see as this video progresses, I'm going to start looking like someone that's melting. It's going to be super hot, getting up to 40 degrees Celsius. It's very high in the mountains. I'm not specific going to say where this trail is. I get special permission to do this. All right, so before I announce the topic and start getting into it, I'm just going to try and do the first couple of miles and get something behind me because it is a very long distance. And 20 kilometers, and I haven't even, the first part of the trail is very easy. It's exactly what I'm doing now, which is just trail. And there's got to get into some real technical trail parts, which still has to come, and I know how difficult that part is. I got to get running, and I got 60 pounds to drag with me, full rifle, 300 rounds of ammunition. So it's a full armor as well, body armor as well. It's a heavy load to carry, and I've got to do that while running, not walking. So let me get cracking. It's like running with full kit. That's what happens when trails are closed and you feel motivated to get lost. Where's the trail? I don't see it. You see a trail? I don't see a trail. It's supposed to go down this way. All right? I'm gonna keep going. I'm really getting lost today. All right. We'll catch up. So hey guys, all right. I'm at a part of the trail now where I recognize it, and it's already been an hour and a half getting to the part where, as the saying goes, from this point onwards, there'd be ghouls. It's going to get tough. a lot of swearing, a lot of suffering ahead for me. And I kind of wanted to explain myself and why I'm doing this. You see, I've always set a standard for myself throughout life, and I'm already 46 years old, and I reckon physically I'm much younger because of the discipline that I was raised with to keep a certain standard, to keep a certain physical standard, to keep a certain mental standard. And when that starts slipping, when you stop pushing yourself and when you start going backwards, you get to a point where you almost don't recognize yourself, I guess. I haven't reached that, but I know a lot of people that have reached that point. So I think, when I retired from working with chimpanzees and the life of television and etc., I got into flight instruction through a very weird way. First off, through doing the anti-poaching work and helping to develop the machines and the technology, etc. But I did enjoy, and for the most part, I guess I can say sometimes I still enjoy the interaction with people. And I think the world has changed. I don't think it's me that's changed, but I think the world's changed in a lot of ways as well, because of what society is doing to us. Every day we get up, we're loaded with stress, and work life, paying the bills, whatever you want to call it, whatever the stress is that's working on us as individuals, whatever's going on in your life, that can take its toll. And I do believe that sometimes it changes. Inevitably, it would change people, and if they don't have something to be anchored to, if they don't remember what keeps their humanity. What I'm trying to say is if your humanity is anchored in something, in a base layer, to something that is a bedrock, then you're going to find yourself in a place where you can't recognize yourself. And that would be okay if it was just you. If you were only interacting with yourself, but you got to remember that you're interacting with other people. And I've seen this and I've experienced it, and I could see how people change. And I would almost say that at some point, in a lot of ways, it's a rare occurrence for me to enjoy the company of people, simply because of the amount of conflict you got to deal with in daily life, in society. And that's, you've watched some of my videos, most likely. You've watched some of the ones where I've spoken about getting to hopelessness, when I'm emotionally attached to that subject, because you look at the world and you get hopeless because you can see the hope being drained out of people and out of the world. And we got to try and hold on to that somehow, And today's subject, and you're going to see the title of this, you most likely did see the title of this, was the fact that I'm trying to talk to young people. I interact a lot with young people, I guess, through social media, where they post, and some find encouragement through the videos that I make, and some watch the content and I think it's pretty cool. And some ask me questions, like I said, over the years, last 20 years, a lot of kids would have mailed me when they watched the show, and when they grew up, I get a mail and said, well, I became a veterinarian, or I became a soldier, or I became this, or I became that, or I found some way to serve the world and try and make the world a better place. And I think that's always been something that made me feel a little bit better about the life that I led. But I'm also confronted with seeing the opposite end of that. I'm confronted with seeing, youngsters that don't have a direction, that don't have inspiration. And it's kind of tough taking that in, because I had a privileged life of having an amazing father and family, mother, brother, everything, my sister, everyone. I was blessed to have an amazing family. I had a father that wasn't very present when I was young, but when I got older, he was there, and he still is. And, the main thing that he instilled in me was the discipline to not be dependent, not to always look for help, but to be self-sufficient, to be independent and to be strong, and to realize that you've got the inner strength to make it work, to get through whatever you got to face. And what I'm doing today, after, at the age of 46, is going through a 20 mile, 20 kilometer. It's supposed to be a time trial, but I'm going to fail this very badly, just because the trail is completely gone. I'm working on trying to find markers and checkpoints, but there's no trail to find. But at some points I do recognize. Anyway, getting off track. I was lucky to off track again. Like I said, at 46, I'm doing this because this is my me time. I just got back from giving instruction, spending time with people all day long, trying to teach them how to fly, and I do enjoy that. And fortunately, I've got some nice students right at the end of my career. But I'm putting myself through this because this is me time. This is where I get to find myself. You don't see anyone around here. Nobody. My wife knows that I'm out somewhere in the jungle. I've got a GPS tracker that I'll probably lose today somewhere along the way. And if something happens to me here, if I step on a snake and I get bitten by a puff adder or a mamba, that's it for me. It's game over, and you need to be okay with that. So my me time is not putting Netflix on, chilling out on the couch with my golden retriever. That's pretty cool too, but I need to get to a place where I can feel lost, where I need to get to a point mentally where it's up to me to get out of it. So when I be going down this trail, there's no cell phone signal here, by the way. I'm going to get to a place where if I stop walking, I stop running, I stop walking, I stop trying, then that'd be it. Be days, weeks, something, for someone to find me. So I'm trying to get to the point where I can get lost. Now, I've done this several times in my career, in my life, and I'll be telling some of those stories when I go down this trail and taking some breaks. But the point is I keep doing this because this is how I remind myself that I am a man, and that I do have the mental and physical power to keep doing it. I train to be strong, not just for me, but for others, but for my family. And when I look at the youngsters of today, and I can see so many of them lost, doing the wrong things, treating women the wrong way, whatever, then you have to look at the personalities that they're idolizing. You have to look at the inspiration, where they're getting the inspiration from. And my goodness, if you just spend a little bit of time and you bump into personalities like Nick Fuentes or Andrew Tate, Dan Bilzerian, one of those, however you pronounce his name. I think, I should probably talk about everyone, what's wrong with any one of those images. And I think I'll have to. But the message that's going to come out of today, before I hit this trail, if I make it, I don't even know if this video is going to get it out. I don't want to sound that desperate, but I'm going to show you my medical kit and you understand the mental being behind this. A mental kit explains everything, pictures with 1,000 words. But what I want to explain to the young men out there is that you guys need to find real heroes. Not me. There are lots of inspirational figures out there, but you need to find the right ones. The ones that can teach you that masculinity is not wrong. That needs to teach you that being strong, being fit, being a gentleman, all of those things incorporated should make you proud of being a man. You should not stand back and let any part of society, no matter who they are, nobody should beat you down and tell you that it's bad to be a man. Now, I can testify to this. There's two things that's wrong with me. The television doesn't like right now, And I went through a production meeting with a big channel. I'm not going to mention their names. And they absolutely loved the concept that a producer was pitching to them with, and I was just sitting in as the presenter. It was obviously something that I wrote. And the producer of the channel had the goal to just say to me in the Zoom call, and with everyone there, there's a problem with this show is that you're white and you're male. That's a problem for us. Is there anything we can do about that? Well, I guess, I can do blackface or something like that if I'm going to make you feel better, but that's not what I'm going to do. You're not going to make me feel bad about who I am, about what color my skin is, about what gender I am, about what my capabilities are. So fuck you and your fucking little channel. Screw yourselves. That is the attitude that we should have as men in this world. No part of society is going to tell us that it's wrong to be a man. There was a time when we took pride in it, when society took pride in who strong men were, when they could look up to people that were able and capable of defending themselves. And sometimes they're ignorant because they forget. They don't switch on the television and watch what's going on in the trenches of Ukraine and Russia. Those are young men in ice water-filled trenches, freezing themselves to death. They're not women doing it. It's men doing it. There's one or two outliers, but for the most part, there are millions of men dying in trenches to take care of their communities. They're fighting for their own people. And that's a time when society starts treasuring what they have. And so my message to you is, there's nothing wrong with being a man. It's the right type of man that you've got to be. It is the one that treats women with respect always. That gentleman side is something, gentleman soldiers, they used to call them. They used to exist, they have to exist, they still exist. We have to be gentlemen, we have to treat women with respect. I think that is key. No woman finds any man attractive that is piss drunk all the time. That is like 50% body weight, body mass, overweight. No, you got to be disciplined. You got to take care of yourself. You've got to project what you are mentally. If you are mentally not strong, that's going to project on your outer self. You've got to project what you are to society, and that's discipline. You gotta find who you are. How you do that is up to you. We're gonna talk about some of that. I'll give you just one example before I start the trail now. I want to get lazy. Let's take Andrew Tate, for example. Here's a guy that preaches the right things in the sense of it's nothing wrong being masculine, but it's the isms that's the problem. Because with him it's materialism. High worth individuals, as he calls them. As he calls men that, if you're successful, you're attractive to females. Well, buddy, I got news for you. Where I come from, women are attracted to men because they are able to take care of them, number one. And number two, they can look to them for protection. Besides the other things of being able to connect on an emotional level and being able to find each other's company stimulating. I think that is, obviously there are a lot of things in a relationship that's important. But the point is, here's a guy that's trying to give you that message while he's doing prostitution online, where he's treating women, he's making business out of devaluating women. Now, just for the record, I just, told you about the producer that said, those individuals are pigs, right? But what you should know as a man is that, and what I hope you appreciate this fact, that next thing that I'm going to say is that one of God's most beautiful creations is a woman. And if you don't see that, if you don't appreciate that, then you'll never treat them with respect. So the whole point that I'm trying to make is that what makes you a high worth individual is being able to take care of and being able to project a strong male, being masculine, but being able to project respect, to be able to treat people with respect, not just women, but everyone with respect. That is what we got to do. It's what we got to get to. That's a goal that you have to keep for the rest of your life. So I don't take pointers from people like Andrew Tate. I don't care how many Bugattis he has, because materialism is not how I measure a high valued individual. Whether you're successful or whether you're not, it's about the values you have. And people like, I think it's Andrew Wilson, he's got a very great way of explaining it. If you wanted to look at finding someone that is inspirational in his messaging. But anyway, go look him up. This is the part, like I said, for me personally, this is how I remind myself that this is who I am. I'm strong, I can do this. I hope I can. I'm going to go through it again. I'm putting myself through the ringer so I can prove to myself, not to others, that I'm tough and I can make it, and I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of what the world can throw at me. I'll give you some stories on that, those kinds of examples of that I faced in the past, so where it's valuable to have that that knowledge. All right, hitting the trail. I already don't know how this footage is going to come up, but look at that view. It's pretty cool. Try and step back. Switching view. Look at that. It's in your legs. Oh, that's a spider in the face. Fucker. Okay, off camera, you little bastard. That's one too many in the face. One would think that the spiders would be a little bit more considerate, since this is a trail and people should be walking here. Why do I have to eat one in the hair, face or mouth every 15 meters? Damn! I'd say that's pretty cool. Nice waterfall, beautiful view, pretty cool. I've got at least another 20 kilometers to go, and I'm already fish paced. Damn, I'm tired. Anyway, getting back on topic. Why am I rocking all this gear? 60 pounds on my body. That's body armor, ammo, water, food, 3 days, just in case I break something or whatever. Can't even hold my arms up anymore. And then I've got my rifle over there. 12 pounds. Anyway, I'm carrying this weight because it makes it much more difficult, and it's not something that I'm gonna leave behind. I'm not gonna leave a rifle behind or ammunition or anything like that. So I'm forced to carry it. And if you want to know what tough is, then start carrying weight. First time I did this trail was 15 years ago. I was carrying 55 kilos of camp gear in my backpack with my daughter, who is turning 19 this year. She's already at university, and my wife. And it got so tough because the trail was closed, and obviously I thought it was a good idea to bring them down here. It took us a whole day. I only finished this trail at night, and I carried my daughter over my neck, sitting on top of my backpack. It's her weight plus my backpack weight. And I can tell you, it starts making sense that people are depending on you when you physically got to carry them. So, yeah, it's a test of mettle. And bringing myself down here and doing it again and again and again over the years is a reminder that you can't get slack at you. It's a reminder of who you really are and who you can choose to stay. You can choose to stay that tough if you want, or you could become fat and lazy and grow a big stomach and watch Netflix or whatever. But just know that there's no excuse to say it was your age I broke my foot 15 years ago. I can't do it again. Can't be tough, can't be strong. There's no such thing. Anyone that chooses to smoke his whole life, anyone that chooses to drink his whole life, anyone that chooses to be lazy his whole life made a decision to do that. And you don't need to make that decision. You can choose to stay strong, you can choose to stay tough, and keep doing it as long as you want to. My dad is 84 years old and he still bench presses 240 pounds. No, I don't even bench press 240 pounds. So, 84-year-old man doing that. It's a choice. You should choose to not go out in a lax state. You choose to go out strong. Now, that comes lesson number 2 for you blokes, young guys going into life. You're starting your life because you finish high school and you're off to varsity, you're off to some form of skill training, or you're taking gap years or whatever you want to do. But needless to say, you've started life. Humility is the second lesson. You can be as rich as a king. You can be as strong as the Hulk. You can have all of that, but it's when you're lost and you got no help and you find yourself in a hopeless situation that you learn true humility. If you're broken something and you can't move and you truly think that you're going to die, then you start realizing that, or at least things come into perspective, how small and how tiny all those things are. You can have it all in the world, but it can be taken away from you in a moment's notice. And then you got to be at peace somehow. And that's tough to do if you never realize what life's about. It's tough to do if you're going to be crying about the fact that you want to keep on living, that you got so much more to still do in this life, and therefore you're going to cry like a little girl about the fact that you're on your way out right now, but you're not going to survive. You don't think you're going to survive for another hour or two. And you find humility. And maybe, just maybe, you find God as well. I pray you do. Similar situation for me. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I had a crash with a paramotor when I started flying, where I took off and I had to abort my takeoff because an Impala crossed my takeoff path, and I switched the engine off and went downhill. And I didn't want to strike the propeller against the animal. I just picked my legs over it. But I was doing such an enormous speed that I ended up crashing and completely destroying the machine, rolling, eventually ending up across the road in the bush, in the veld, and hurting my back so much that I couldn't move my legs. I thought I broke my back, and I couldn't move my legs, but it was a pinched nerve more than it was anything else. But at that moment when I couldn't move and I was trapped underneath the machine and I had to crawl out of the bush like that, that was 15 years ago as well. Damn, I did a lot of stupid shit 15 years ago. I still paramotor. Had to crawl out on my stomach to eventually I could get to the road, and I just lay there in the road until a car passed by, and somebody found me. So that kind of felt helpless to the point where all that bravado, all that I'm a tough guy, all that, oh, I can do this all day long, that all disappears in a moment when you notice that you're not all that strong. It's actually quite insignificant, and you've got to be smart about your choices, make clever decisions, but most of all, not hold on to life like That's all that matters. You gotta realize what comes after life. And that shouldn't be scary. It shouldn't scare you at all. But let's get downstream. I still got a lot of way to go, or I'll be sleeping in the flood zone. And now we'll catch up on lesson number 2. So lesson number 3. For those of you that grew up without a lot of guidance and faith, religion, we teach you one of those really incredible lessons. And that is to treat others like you would want to be treated. So, giving you guys a good example of a bad example of a bad mentor, and that would be someone like Dan Bilzerian. Now, if you go check him out on Instagram, and I'm sure most of you youngsters know who he is, and you also know that he poses and promotes his brand, just by displaying women in a way that they are just lying around in bikinis all over him, like he's going to bed with 10 women every night, that kind of deal. If you are going to diminish women to the role where they are just rags on your couch, where they have no meaning, then you are signing yourself up to a very, very sad ending in this world. So that's not who women are. Let me tell you, since I raised one her entire life, my daughter, studying to become an engineer, she is a great example of what women are able and capable of achieving. She's not a rag that's going to be lying on somebody's couch. And Dan is a pig for trying to demote women to that role. Now I know, he's cool, whatever, maybe that's cool for you in the moment, first time you watch that, but I want you to realize, once that message sinks in, think about what I'm telling you. That dude will always be unhappy. Whoever tries to emulate him will always be unhappy. All the boats, all the money, all the rags on your couch is going to bring you happiness. None of that. So I'm trying to tell you that happiness only comes from being married to a good woman. No, we'll get to there eventually. But you can be alone if you want. You can do whatever you want. But if you treat people with respect and you treat women with respect, then you're automatically going to attract much better quality women and the type that you would want in your life. I hope that makes sense. It's 10 kilometers in. My legs are fish paste, and my brain's a little bit wired. But we keep going. I wanted to run this trail, but it seems to be beating me down with all this weight. All right, next lesson up as soon as I cross the river. I don't know. I get the idea. This cable is a little bit beyond its prime. So there used to be these little bridges, but after this pretty hectic rainy season, they left. So, oh, for fuck's sake. Fucking spiders. Even the cable needs to be annexed by the fucking spiders. See, this is where the me time starts. Where I start finding creative swear words. I've seen enough spiders to last me at least another 15 years. Okay, lesson number, what was it for? Yeah. Confidence. So, I'm just picking these things off my brain as I keep getting more and more dehydrated, so don't take it too seriously. But anyway, I do think that confidence is key, and it plays out in various ways in life. Whether you want to talk to a girl, or whether you are bullshitting your way through a troublesome situation. So there was this one time in Angola where I had a whole bunch of chimps ready to go. It's been a tough mission. I got them crated. Now, if you haven't watched my show, then you would have a little bit of a hard time understanding what I mean when I say things can get difficult. So I had to build crates out of diesel engine boxes and reinforce them with steel that I cut out of the Luanda Zoo with a grinder, welders and whatever else I could get my hands on, with a couple of guys that helped. And yeah, so what happened was, in the end, got the blood results, got the chimps rescued, get them to the airport, get them into customs area, and there's one dude, security guy, thinks he's going to stop everything. He's going to stop the chimps from getting loaded. So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. He says to me, "Nah, you know what, something's wrong with your paperwork here. You guys are not getting on the plane. You're not the chimps." And I don't know if he was fishing for a bribe or whatever, but I took out my sat phone and I said to him, "You know what? These chimps belong to the Vice President of Angola. So I'm going to get him on my sat phone, and you're going to explain to him why I can't save his chimps." And I type in a number in the sat phone and it rings. I was calling somebody else in South Africa. And I handed the phone to the security guard and I said, "Talk to this guy, talk to the Vice President and explain to him what an asshole you are. You are done. Your job is toast." And I said, no, don't worry about it. Please stop. And killed the phone, and yeah, we got on the plane. Bullshit 101. Oh, fuck. Here I go with another bullshit mission into the water. This is turning out to be fun. All right, so confidence. Whatever you do, do it like you mean it. Drive it like you stole it. 3 hours, 33 minutes. Still going. Got about 6 kilometers to go through ravine, river, stream, whatever you want to call it. Seems to be beating me a bit. Surrounded by water, but not a drop to drink. So my water's finished, and I don't have a filter with me. I'm definitely not drinking this. I think I'm reaching that me time moment that you're considering. What the fuck were you thinking? I think I'm going to be taking the podcast indoors from now on again. Doing it out here is way too hard. Maybe that's a lesson for me, not for the younger guys. I'm going to get back up and keep going as far as I can. Now, this trail's never been like this before. Simply because there was a huge storm and it ripped all the bridges off. Every little river crossing is gone. Now I've had to climb across these rivers about 12 or 13, 14, 15, I don't know how many times, stop counting. And that just makes it really hard because it's unstable ground for you to put your feet on. And have a look at that, for example. It's just, the whole thing is just smash. Hulk smashed it. Damn it, Hulk. Anyway, keep going. But it's getting to that point where I'm feeling it. So this little bridge is still here. However it gets me, it's gonna do me. Let me get across. Well, I made it out of those mountains there at the back. Was it a wise decision to pack all that equipment, rifle and the whole lot, and hike for 6.5 hours, doing about 15 or more river crossings with all that? Probably not the wisest decision, but I think I proved the point to myself. It wasn't to prove anything to anyone else. So if you did take this whole video as an exercise of me trying to prove my mettle, then you've missed the point. This was just for me, and along the way, I got to talk to some young fellas about life. All right, hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. As you can see, I made it back to the office in one piece. I don't know how many of those I'm going to want to do in the short term. Maybe take a bit of recovery and then get back into something like that. But it was a great fitness test. Not quite the time I wanted to do it in, but it was a heavy load and all the river's infrastructure was gone. Rivers, little bridges, things. The river destroyed most of all the bridges. And there's about, I can't even count, probably about 15 of those stream and river crossings, and it was just made traveling quite difficult. Anyway, the last figure I wanted to focus on, because if you guys remember, this topic is about focusing on the inspirational figures that younger men um, are looking towards in today's world. And I've covered Andrew Tate, I've covered Dan Bilzerian, for example. And although there are many others, I think that Nick Fuentes has had quite an impact. Now, one would think that with a movement like his, which is called America First, that I've got no reason to talk about it, no reason to have a comment about it. But the fact is, whatever happens in America does flow downstream. And you'd be surprised how many young men mention his opinions. So not necessarily about America First, but about the opinions he has on many different topics, and how they kind of connect with it. And for a lot of, I think Jordan Peterson is a very good example of someone that has spoken out about the reasons why young men and men in general are connecting with a message like, or connecting with figures like Nick Fuentes instead of figures like Charlie Kirk. And to me, it's a symptom of what I've experienced myself, being in the film industry and having seen how the negative side of feminism and of um, the attack on Western culture has come about, and how that's focused on young males, how that's focused on males in general and white males in general, I would say. Um, and because of that, it's caused a situation where young people worldwide are worried about their futures. They are demotivated to perform, they are demotivated to. Um, to strive as far as they would have a few decades ago, only a few decades ago, I would say. And it's kind of because they feel the world is set against them. And this is something that society needs to repair. As I mentioned earlier, my response is quite dramatic when it comes to me dealing with figures that want to promote, want to drive home these statements, um, these systems where they want to eliminate white men from the workforce or want to attack masculinity. That to me is the core reason why the symptom of it is playing out in figures like Nick Fuentes being popular for his viewpoints. Now, you know, uh, I just like to address some of these viewpoints. I'm not going to waste too much time in discussing him as a whole, because I just think he talks a lot of crap on most things. But it's very important, and I can see that in even my society, where my culture is conservative Christianity for the most part. The Boer culture is conservative Christianity based. And the America First viewpoints can be taken out of context as a conservative Christian, because of the notion that Western culture is under attack, Christian values are under attack. Now, I've got to unequivocally state that I agree with the fact that Western culture is under attack and that it is being browbeaten constantly by elements of society. Now, I want to highlight this. This is very important. Because elements of society is browbeating down on um, Western culture, because some personalities, because some politicians are doing that, that does not mean that we have
to use a broad brush to paint the whole of society as set against conservative Christianity or Western values. Something that's very important is that we could look at why our parents, for example, the baby boomer generation, and even the Gen X generation, millennials, not even so much the millennials, but the Gen X generation, and the generations before that, why they were so successful as far as conserving family values um, was concerned is because of the nuclear family. The attack on the nuclear family is a huge problem. That is something that should be stamped out. The only way that's going to be stamped out is if we start standing up against it. And that means we're going to need everyone that is sane and functional and mentally stable to start stamping that out, to start calling out the figures that are doing it so that we can focus our efforts in getting our society back on track. If we lose our younger generation, our younger men, if we lose them, we're losing, we lose the fight, pretty much. Because without that element of society, you have lost the ability to protect women. You've lost the ability to enforce, um, to use forceful means, as part of law enforcement, as part of military, armed forces, etc. They are the bulk part of it. They are the bastion that stands up against some tyrant that comes into play, that attacks your culture for real, your country, your borders, your sovereignty. That is where they are most valuable. So taking care of them and making sure that they are still seen for the role that they were seen um, decades ago. That is incredibly important. Now, that does not mean that the rights of women are degraded in any way. I think that the role of women has changed incredibly, and I can see that live out in my daughter, as I mentioned a few times in the same video. And I'm very proud to see that happen. There is a part that they now add to the workforce element, or that they can add to the workforce element. And even though it's in very small numbers, I mean, if I had to just take my daughter's class, out of the 1,100 engineering students, there's about 100 engineering students in one of the most difficult fields, which is electrical engineering, of which maybe 2% would be women. So a very small percentage would actually strive to get to that point where they are inside um, the workforce in competition with men um, in that same segment. But having said that, that does not mean that the women that would be doing that would be sacrificing their traditional roles within a conservative Christian or the nuclear family unit. Now, why do I believe in the nuclear family? Why do I think it's so important? Because if you if you look at the numbers of and where there are some huge societal problems, um, it is one of the lesser known facts to see that the families without a stable father figure within the family, with the there are various different phrases or terms that they refer to in that, but having an absent father within the family unit, and that becomes part of a cultural system, then we are looking at a degraded community. The values are not transferred, the discipline isn't maintained within the family unit, and you're now loading up so much more on the mother to raise the children. And therefore, orphanages are going to expand as well because, it can get too much. But there's a certain part of the nuclear family which makes the male essential: the discipline, the, I would almost say, the part or the role that is played by the masculine man within the nuclear family, where he's the one that protects the family when they are in danger, the role traditionally has changed over decades, where some of the roles have changed a little bit when it comes to um, income generation as well, and family tasks that's being performed. I mean, I can see that such a big difference from the baby boomers over to my generation. I mean, um, that's that's how I, for example, my family lives. I have a very traditional family, but be surprised that I do most of the cooking. It's just simply because I have a passion for it. But it doesn't mean that it degrades my role as a male in any way, because I still have all the other functions and all the other traditional male roles that I play as well. Um, I do think that the nuclear family has to have its essential elements, and we can't have those essential elements play and function correctly, play out and function correctly if the masculine male is missing. So, for anyone wants to degrade or break that, they're the enemy. And Nick Fuentes is the result of those attacks. So you see that we are creating our own monsters simply because um, we change as a society where we've just attacked the things that matter most. We've attacked the way the proven systems, the proven way of life has been under attack for such a long time that um, the monsters are coming out of the closet and they're capitalizing on it. So that's the one thing that I wanted to address for the younger generation to understand that their role hasn't changed at all. Um, if if a woman is raised in the right way, a young girl is raised, becomes a woman, obviously, and has been raised the right way by both elements of the mother and the father within the nuclear family, then you will have a transfer of ethics to that individual, that she would still understand that even though that academics might become a big part, and that her goals and ambitions might have changed from a traditional woman, just being homebound and taking care of children. I think that if that is still there is still a possibility to be able to do both, to have a career and to be able to raise a family, because you cannot raise a family without a mother. It's just impossible to do that. So, um, as we get into this new generation that I think will be blazing a trail in a lot of ways, some of the mistakes will be repaired. Definitely. I think the millennial generation had a lot of mistakes they made. And in part, it was because of celebrities and personalities that brought across a set of ethics where conservative Christianity was eliminated, and so was the nuclear family ethics. Um, and sexual immorality was brought into the equation as a norm. And because of all of these elements playing out, unfortunately, we were unable as a generation to be very successful in transferring that to the next generation. But I do see that there's a revival coming in that. I do see that there is an opportunity to bring that back and get things going again in the right direction. I can see that there's a lot of positive, a lot of extremely good mentors out there that are bringing across the correct message. And how successful that would be, I wouldn't know. Time will tell. Um, but then you get, they can, because of this attack on the conservative values and the role of men within society, people like Nick can now, get a foothold within the minds of young men, and then he can use that opportunity to start to start creating demons. So, for example, creating the Jewish community as an entity that should be targeted, for example, playing down the role of not the role, but the effect of the Holocaust, what the Holocaust was, what the effect of it was, etc., by distorting facts and then making them a boogeyman. Now and I've listened to some of his material, and he clearly says he can't hate anyone because of his Christian values. He can't hate anyone, but it doesn't stop him from spewing hateful messaging. But again, he is using a broad stroke or a broad brush to paint everyone because of some Jewish individuals that act kind of like what the Pharisees would do in the Bible, for example. So, would you, in Jesus, if you're a Christian, you would understand that Jesus had a major problem with the Pharisees and how they portrayed the Jewish faith to the Israelites. But the one thing is extremely clear, and what Jesus brought across in his teachings was is that he was a Jew, and he came back to save as many of the Jews as possible, to convert them to Christianity. And that would be a continued process that doesn't stop at all. I mean, that is why there is such a large community of Christians worldwide within the Gentile, what should be referred to as the Gentiles. So my point is, what I'm trying to make is that Jesus didn't see all of the Jews in the same light as he saw the Pharisees. He blamed a portion of the Jewish society for the problems that they were experiencing, all while he was trying to help as many Jews as possible to get on the right track. So understanding the Bible is incredibly important, and nobody should be twisting what it is portraying in any way. And I do believe that that is what Nick is doing. And into a large amount, I'm going to criticize Tucker Carlson as well, because he does that as well. He misinterprets what the Bible says about how God views the Jewish people, um, because of the narrative, or at least the some of the beliefs that he's tried. Well, no, it is completely a narrative. He's using a narrative that he's trying to drive away that the Jews are bad, in some way, because of the military actions that's going on in the Middle East, and because of the lobbying groups that are in America. But again, these aren't things that I should be talking about, because I'm not an American. But like I said, if hatred is spewed or narratives are spun online, it flows all over the world, and it affects people of the Western culture. So it's not just South Africans that are following, that have a culture very close to the Western society, but you have all of Europe, that have different cultures, but they are integrated, they are interconnected with Western culture, and America is a large part of that. So these influences are affecting a lot more people than one would think, not just the American public, but they're infecting a lot of people. And we should be careful and fight back, and, um, you know, bring across the correct factual information. So, um, that is a no-brainer. Being able to 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 paint all of the Jews under the same brush, to be able to say, to take the actions of a few Jewish people doing the wrong thing within society, and then trying to just make the whole, all of them the bad guy again, like the Nazis did. So I don't even have to talk about that too much, because I'm sure that everyone that's listening to this video completely understands what I mean, and it makes a lot more sense than what Fuentes is saying. Um, when it comes to comments that Fuentes is making, for example, on women, for example, that terms that he uses, like that they are the baby making machines, and they shouldn't have a right to vote. Um, they're all nonsensical terms. But again, the only reason why these these messages of hatred, of division, is getting a foothold within young men is simply because they feel that they are so constantly attacked by feminism within society, that element. And that element is misguided. It shouldn't be doing that. Um, and simply because there are some cases of abuse between men and women, that is also an incredibly important example of using a brush to say that all men are the same. And I made that very clear in this video right from the beginning. Are you the right kind of man? The man that treats others with respect and treats women with respect. Because if you do have that form of treatment, if you do have that form of um, that form of behavior, uh, then you are going to attract a much better class of women, and you will be able to start a life, and you will be able to have a nuclear family, and you will be able to fit your role perfectly within that unit. And that unit is what the world needs. So I think I've covered as much as I can, or at least as I would want to, about figures like Nick, Andrew Tate, and the rest of them. Um, and there was one, on one of my pages, there was someone that mentioned a comment that they can, my true colors, as I showed, as a left, as a right leaning person. And I want to be very clear about this. This isn't about being right or left. I am a conservative. I'm completely biased when it comes to that because I'm a Christian, and I live my life that way. But what we should be doing is viewing subjects and topics through the lens of what is right and what is wrong. Now, you can easily look at a topic through the lens of left or lens of a right leaning person and then come to a different conclusion. But man, it is so easy to try to analyze, factually analyze things. Just think enough about it, not being influenced, but to think enough about a topic to determine whether it's right or wrong. Just because you want it to change or want it to be right or wrong, that doesn't make it right or wrong. You have to analyze the facts and then come to a conclusion. And we are seeing a changing world. We are seeing a pendulum swinging away from what's been happening the last decade. And things are changing. And what we should be looking for is more facts coming out and more voices being heard, because um, a lot of voices were degraded. Their ability or their outreach has been degraded. And we're getting into a period now where some serious conversations can come into play. We saw how some really bad characters tried to muzzle the conservative voices, and that is no longer the case. We now have the ability to have open conversation and debate about topics. It's not about left or right. It's about the bad actors that did what they did, whatever their reason, whatever their agenda. Remember, I've spoken this about many times in some of my other videos. Agendas are some of the biggest things that people look past. You should never have the opinion that you take a book, you judge a book by its cover. Just because an organization carries a certain title and has a certain mission does not necessarily mean that that mission is what they are intending to follow through on. You have to you have to judge according to actions. You have to look at what the final, what the end result or the outcome is supposed to be and how that is achieved, and then come to a conclusion. So I don't want to hammer too much away about this. There is one thing that I did not talk about that I noticed when I was editing the video. This is going to come out as part of the YouTube channel one. Maybe I'll upload it to the Facebook page as well. But I do have to say that I got some questions about some of the equipment that I was carrying, and one of the funny things that some people know me for is my all the accidents and injuries that I've had in the past in some very isolated areas. I've got a very, very strange take on it, and that is my medical kit. So I will do a separate little take on my medical kit, um, and how I treat trauma and situations, and that plays to my psychology as well. Um, whether you agree with me or not, I can guarantee you wouldn't agree with me. But just that's just me. It makes me different. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed what I tried to do with the new format over Facebook. Let me know if you guys prefer this over the YouTube format. I will be uploading all of this cut together into a YouTube podcast episode as well. And we're going to see how that does as well. But so far as I can see, we've had a lot more viewers watching the clips on the Facebook page. So successful so far, but in the end, we're going to get to a system that works and that you guys prefer most. All right. Thank you for taking the time to watch the episodes. And yeah, I'll be seeing you on the next one.